This episode of the Flush Podcast is brought to you by Walton's, Aluma Trailers, Onyx Hunt, and by Nutrisource Pet Foods. Today I'm talking with Bret Wonnacott, a bird hunter, dog trainer, field trialer, conservationist, conservation mentor, and author of the book titled A Millionaire's Dream. Welcome to another episode of the Flush Podcast. I'm Travis Frank. I'm your host. Brandon Morton is your producer. Brandon and I are laughing right now because he's got this fancy new system. It's a button bar, and so I've done now 3 or 4 takes. Look at you, like fading the music out over there. And so we try to do the show open and play some of the sound that you accidentally hit instead.
Well, the sound I hit instead was the good old, which has absolutely nothing to do with the show and or the setup and or what's going to come. Oh. But yeah, that's the button I hit. Well, whatever. It's new gear. I got flustered, man.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm happy for you. I'm excited about this because, I mean, like, hit a couple more. Hit a couple more.
What do we have there? There we got that one.
That's pretty good. Mm-hmm. A lot of
or when I tell a joke, or when you tell a joke to make you feel better.
Yeah. Bless you.
Yeah, we've got a few of them lined up on the button bar. If anyone has any requests for me to put on the button bar, let me know. Send Travis that information.
Oh my goodness! So now we got to take this on the show live. Last week, I believe I got more feedback on last week's show than maybe any of the other podcasts we've done. Maybe not, but a lot of it, which was great to hear. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, George Lyle and Ben Bredigan and I, we spent a day training, and then afterwards, we really tried our best to break things down as to how to develop a puppy and where to start. And I feel like we barely scratched the surface on it, but the questions have been phenomenal. I could do a whole nother show, Brandon, on just the questions that people followed up with.
Oh, I can believe it.
Which is great. And so then obviously now my brain is churning. I talked to George. So a lot of people wanted George to host a seminar, and I did have to tell them that he does have a day job and get away because he needs to spend more time with my dog.
Yeah, there you go. Yes.
No, I'm kidding. But I did throw the idea out there about potentially doing a live seminar with him. And then we could break this thing down into 4 parts, maybe 3 or 4 parts, developing a dog, the basics get you there, introducing birds, finishing a dog, the different steps along the way. I think what I want is feedback from listeners. Do you want us to break that down? Will you be bored if we do? There are some challenges in trying to walk through a training process without seeing it. This is obviously an audio podcast, so that's my struggle. That was my struggle sitting there with George. We were all exhausted from a long day, and we just tried to power through to make sense of it. And I wish I would have stopped talking and just let George talk more because the man has so much wisdom underneath that cowboy hat.
Oh, it's incredible. I really like the slap happy part of you guys getting in and starting up the show. Yeah, it sounded like it was a fun day.
Yeah, there was some beverages involved. And well earned too for them. Yeah.
But no, I think that's one of the biggest requests I see from people is more dog training info. Everybody, not everybody, a majority of the people that listen to the show are dog owners and dog lovers. So why not?
It's got to be close to 100%.
It's got to be close.
Very close.
There are those solo hunters out there, though, that definitely, we should be doing some stuff about them sometime, too. But, the dogs, who doesn't love dogs?
And that's going to segue perfectly into our guest today. And as long as I'm talking about feedback, when listeners send in messages, Brandon, they'll send them direct or through our website or whatever. I get the messages, and I usually try to answer the questions. But then I always ask, hey, what do you want to hear us talk about? Or who should we interview next? Any ideas, any guests? And yesterday I got a listener said, hey, would you have Bret Wonnacott on the show? And I think he'd be a great guest to have. And I responded, I was like, you're in luck. Bret's on cue. He's our guest this week. So, Bret, welcome to the show. How does that make you feel, knowing that people have recommended you to be a guest for us to interview?
Well, how could I not be flattered? I mean, that's just awesome. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. That's really great of whoever that was.
Yep. And they weren't alone. I had a few other people that sent in messages over the last few weeks saying, "Hey, I think you should have Bret on the show." Multiple reasons why. I mean, if you off the top, I mentioned a long list of things that you're well known for, and obviously dogs are a very big part of that. If Bret, if somebody asks you, what would you say you do? How do you respond to that?
That is so hard to answer. People ask me what I do, and I say, well, you mean for a living, or what my passion is, and it's really hard to describe.
Yeah.
I'm involved in so many different things, and I probably try to be involved in too many things, but I try to expose people to the world of hunting, specifically upland game bird hunting. Maybe people that haven't seen it, maybe people that are on the fence about hunting in general, and try to show them some beauty in it.
How do you go about doing that?
Well, I think part of it is just by setting an example on social media, in life in general. Somehow I've found myself it all started with a duck call years ago, believe it or not. I was blowing a duck call competitively, and I was lucky enough to win a couple of state championships and things, and that's how I met the host of KSL Outdoors, Adam, and he and I became great friends, and we started doing a little hunting together, and we started shooting shows, and that allowed me, an audience to show this to. And then as that went on, I sort of kind of got my own following, and I started doing some other things with the Utah Chucker and Wildlife Foundation and habitat projects and fundraising, and then I sort of stumbled in the door to this program that I do, where I go into high schools, into FFA programs, and talk to them about hunting and how wildlife conservation is funded in the United States, and I take the dogs with me, and the dogs show off, and the dogs are a great gateway to that. So,
how did that begin with the FFA and getting involved there? Because I feel like there's probably a lot of people listening right now that have the ability to do what you're doing, have the knowledge to do what you're doing, but they maybe don't know how to get in the door, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, because obviously you've been doing that for a while now. And then second question is, what are the kids' responses to you and the dogs and your message?
Yeah, so it started kind of by happenstance. So one of the ladies that I run in NASTRA trials with, she had a daughter that was an FFA, and she thought it would be pretty cool if we took the dogs in and just did a little demonstration. And actually, she asked me to come talk about duck calling, and mallard vocalization is how it started. And then she thought, God, we'll bring the dogs and we'll do a dog demonstration. So anyway, I thought up a way to do a dog demonstration in the little area they had, and it started out that way, and it just kind of grew. And I think I did 5 high schools last year. I'm going to try to do 6 this year if I can make it happen. But it just sort of grew from that. So most of the FFA teachers, they're teaching an animal science class as part of the curriculum now, and hunting is sort of mentioned in that. And I think the teachers themselves are pretty willing to accept somebody in, as long as you're, the kind of person that needs to be, that they want in their classroom. But anyway, the way I approach it is I walk into the classroom and I bring these. It used to be just 2, now it's 4 English setters, and they're well trained and they're well behaved. They're house dogs. They're my best buds, right? All of them. And we walk in and we just let these dogs roam the classroom, and I don't have to do much to win the kids over because the dogs have already done it.
Right.
And so we talk about some of the things that I just mentioned. And I usually bring a guest speaker with me, somebody from the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources or from one of the local conservation groups to talk a little bit. And then after we've discussed this, and one of my favorite questions to ask is, how many people in this room are hunters? And there's always a few hands that go up. And then you say, well, how many are non-hunters? And a bunch of hands go up. And then you say, how many are against hunters? And there's always a couple of hands that go up.
Really?
And so always. And so in that crowd, I've got some work to do. And what I say is, my job isn't to convert you to be pro-hunting or anti-hunting or anything. Is to show you what hunters do for wildlife in this country. And then we go into the Wildlife Restoration Act of 1937 and all those, important milestones, Duck Stamped Act, all those milestones that form the foundation of modern wildlife management. And once that's done, that's sort of the part I call the boring, necessary part, even though it's not boring to me. Right. We go outside, and I just use, if it's close enough to home, I'll use my homing pigeons, and we set up an exercise. And I like to walk the dogs off, 50 yards away, and put them at whoa, and then walk out and talk to the kids while the dogs are standing there. And I'll have a pigeon hidden right in front of them somewhere, and I guess I should back up. I hide the pigeon before I put the dogs at whoa, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so I teach them how to put a pigeon to sleep, how to dizzy a pigeon and put it to sleep. I don't use launchers because I just think it's more fun to do it this way. And the kids usually they're in love with putting a pigeon to sleep. So at some point during the demonstration, I call a few volunteers out to dizzy a pigeon. And anyway, hide the bird, and I try to hide them in such a fashion it'll produce a dramatic result, so that when that dog comes by in a path that I hope I've predicted correctly, he's going to spin and just stick that bird hard and really put on a show for the kids. And you hear a lot of oohs and ahs, and there's always like 2 or 3 kids in that group that are just into it, and they come up and talk to you after, and it's super rewarding and super fun.
Oh, it sounds awesome, Bret. What are some of the best questions they've ever asked you? I have to imagine you've gotten a lot.
Yeah, they ask all kinds of things. A lot of it's about how to put a pigeon to sleep, and why do they do that? And I don't have answers for it. So,
well, can you describe that right now? How do you, without seeing it? You just heard Brandon and I go back and forth a little bit about our last show, a dog training seminar that we kind of gave. Audio version, it's hard to not see something. I listened to your last show. It was great too, by the way. Hey, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So you tuck a pigeon's head under its wing, and you spin it around in circles like sort of like a softball pitch, underhand, and then you go overhand and underhand and overhand like a windmill.
Yeah. And
you do that about 8 times, and you can take that pigeon and just set it on your open hand, and it'll just sit there with its head under its wing if you've done it correctly. And that allows you time to hide the bird in some brush or something. And the bird's not hurt. It's fine. And when the dog comes in and points it, you can then just disturb it from its rest, and it'll wake up and fly away. It's a fun way to do it as long as you've got steady dogs.
How long will the bird stay there?
Usually long enough.
Yeah. you get the bird, you get the whole process. I have to imagine there's a little bit of pressure because class sizes vary from how big to how big.
Oh, so sometimes there could be 50 kids. Sometimes it's, only 30 or something.
Okay. Gotcha. But still, there's a lot of pressure there.
Several classes a day usually. So I'll usually do 3 classes at a school.
So then my next question, Bret, is why do you do it?
Well, we have to give back, right? Mm-hmm. Hunting is a full circle thing. And I don't know that I understood this when I was younger. I mean, I thought I did, but we think we understand a lot of things when we're young. But there comes a time when you have to save it for the future. And you have to find ways. Gosh dang it. I'm so sorry, Travis. Okay. I'm going to bring a dog over here to bite me so I don't, crack up. But I'm a passionate person, and it runs in all directions, and sometimes I can't control it. Okay, so why do I do it? Hunting is a full circle thing, and I don't know that I understood that when I was younger. But as we get older, and the act of hunting changes from, I mean, when we first start out, maybe it's more about the kill, maybe it's more about harvesting a few birds, or uh, whatever it is. But I think for me, that's what it was. It was more about harvesting birds. And then it became more about harvesting birds in a clean way, with good dog work. And then it became about giving back. And then it became about finding new ways to give back. And I don't have any children of my own, so this is my way of giving back to more than just one.
Yeah. Well, I've been fortunate to speak for a lot of different groups over the last few years, different Pheasants Forever banquets. But one thing that I feel is important for the organizations involved with Habitat, Pheasants Forever, Ducks Unlimited, the Pheasants Forever is the habitat organization. And I remind people this almost every time. But some people in the organization literally plant seeds in the soil, and they grow grass, and that will put more acres of habitat on the ground to grow wildlife. Some people plant seeds in the souls of other hunters, and that is a very, very powerful way of giving back and making a difference. And we don't know where those seeds are going to sprout and where they're going to grow, but Bret, I guarantee the hundreds of kids that you've shown, that you've given that information to, it allows them to think, do I want to learn a little bit more about this? Do I care about this? I'm interested in this dog. I'm fascinated by the birds. And, if you're not telling them, who is?
Exactly. And the opportunity was there. And I think it's there in other states around the country. And I think if maybe you have a son and daughter in FFA, and if you have some really nicely trained bird dogs, and you feel like you're really comfortable in speaking in front of a few kids, maybe give them a call and see if they're interested in having you come and do a little demonstration, because we could touch more than a couple kids here in Utah. We could reach some kids in Minnesota and Iowa and South Dakota and wherever.
Well, now you've got me thinking that I got to do this, because I was in FFA and I actually went to state, Bret, for wildlife identification. Brandon, hit the button bar. That was not the. No. You got to work on that.
No. I felt like that was fairly appropriate. I'm not gonna lie.
I really did. It's a true story. I went to state in FFA.
There. I had to set it straight. Sorry.
This technology. So, but nobody came and gave me the information that you gave, Bret. I think that as a kid, I would have been all over that. I would have loved that.
Wouldn't you just love to see an English setter fly across, come and running straight at you and just stick a point right in front of you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. This has really got me thinking. I really hope that other people right now are thinking about this too, because imagine the first time you saw a dog do that. Stick a point, or
I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yes, I do too. I remember the first time a dog went on point that I was hunting with, and the guy's like, just walk, don't walk behind, but just come right in front and just walk right past and get ready, and this big old rooster comes flying out of the grass. And I was so taken back by the whole explosion, but then thinking about the dog and the whole scenario, and I don't even know how long ago it was, Bret, but I still absolutely remember it. And man, that is, I did not expect our conversation to go this direction today. But I'm glad it did.
I thought it might surprise you a little.
No, this is really valuable conversation.
Let me tell you about my first time.
Yeah.
So I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and I was hunting with my dad, and he had these German Shorthairs. My dad was a German Shorthair breeder. And Dad was not a dog trainer. Let me start there. He was a breeder. Let's be clear. There's a difference. His dogs were just natural, but he had this setter, and or excuse me, not a setter, a German short-haired pointer, and it ran. It came running past me, and it was bigger than me, and I was a little bit startled by it because I wasn't exactly comfortable with dogs yet at that time, and it ran by, and Dad goes, "Look, he's on point," and I couldn't really see it, and we walked over there, and the dog was standing there, and he was just so intense. He was like, his tail was shaking, and it was just a pure chocolate brown short hair, and he had a little bit of gray on his muzzle. And I really wasn't sure what to expect because Dad had been talking to me a little bit about, dogs on point. I'd heard grown-ups talking about dogs on point all the time, and I didn't really understand what it meant. I think maybe I thought that the dog would like hold up its paw and show where the bird is or something. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't what I expected. And then this rooster cackled from the grass in front of his dog, and it seemed like it was bigger than me, and it kind of scared me a little bit. And I remember stumbling back, and I looked up at my dad, and he was following it with the gun, and he pulled the trigger, and the sound of the gun even kind of scared me a little bit. And then he's yelling fetch, and there's a bunch of chaos going on. And the next thing I could see, because the grass was too tall for me to really see through very much, is this dog coming parting the grass with this rooster in his mouth. And brought it to my dad. My dad's like, "Look at this bird." And I was like, "Wow, what a bird," And that was my first experience. And that was a long, long time ago, but it certainly left an impression, as you can.
Well, yeah. Isn't it amazing how that sticks with you? Which I think goes back to what you've shown kids, hundreds of kids now over the years, just by taking some time out of your day and showing them something that, I mean, aside from the handful that raise their hands every time you ask, how else would they ever see that? How else would they ever even know that is possible? I mean, if you don't have somebody literally physically taking you or showing you, nobody else is going to give them that opportunity. So
exactly.
Oh man. Yeah. Well done. Yes, obviously anybody else that knows, hey, I can do that. I don't think it's wrong to probably reach out to a school district or a teacher or somebody in your area. Most schools, I think, still have FFA, I would imagine, so that opportunity is there. But I know in Minnesota, one of the teachers at my local school started a conservation club. So that's now in my mind, I got to talk to Wayne about, Brandon, make a mental note here. We're going to have Wayne on, and we're going to do, I think this is something. We're, okay, on-air production meeting right now. We're talking.
All right, I've got my computer ready.
Okay, we're going to talk to Wayne Trapp, Waconia Conservation Club, because that would be so cool.
So anyway, I'm going to take it one step further.
Please do.
So there's one. Are you okay with me going one step further?
Please, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll take it one step further. There is a one group, Wasatch High School here in Utah, and the teacher there is super passionate about conservation himself. And he was the second school I did, but he was already doing stuff before I came. And he has his kids raising chukars as part of I wish I could remember all the names of all these programs that they use, but there's so many. But they raise chukars and sell them as part of their senior project thing, and they make a little bit of money, and then they hold some of those chukars over and they sponsor a school chukar hunt, which is really amazing because they get all these first-time hunters. And so he takes them out and they learn how to shoot trap, and then I get some guys from my bird dog club, and I make sure I handpick these dogs. I pick dogs that are steady broke. I mean, not broke to wing shot and fall, but broke to flush. Birds can stand up and walk underneath them, and the dog's going to stand. And then we go up and we release these chukars, and we take these kids out in pairs, 2 at a time, each with a guide and a dog, one single dog, and we give them a simulated hunt. It's not wild birds, in Hales Canyon, but it's the neatest thing they've seen.
Mm-hmm. When did you get into training, and how?
Dog training.
Yeah.
Like I said, my father was a breeder. So when I was a little kid, and my father was kind of a weekend dad. I had my parents were divorced, like a lot of folks, and so I would go to my dad's on the weekends. He had always seemed to have a litter of puppies, and in my memory, it seemed like there was always a litter, but there's no way that's possible. But I would teach those puppies how to sit and stuff, and that was my earliest thing. And then when I got a puppy when I was like 15, and I really tried hard. I just didn't have the means to train it, and I didn't have the internet or all the things that we have today. I didn't have money to buy books and things. I did the best I could with what I had. I basically ran the dog on wild birds, and I mean, I'd like a do-over with that dog, in fact.
Oh,
but going forward more, as I moved out, and the first time there was 1 year of my life I spent without a bird dog, and it was the worst year of my life. But as soon as I got a dog again, I really put forth a lot of effort. The problem was I was a struggling young person, and I had to come up with ways to make things work on a really limited budget. I mean, I was struggling to buy a bag of Old Roy dog food, let alone, being able to buy launchers, and I didn't have an electric collar. I trained my first dog without an electric collar, and I just on, whatever I could make work. So I was probably about 20 years old when I got him, and I made a lot of mistakes. But he was better than me, and he taught me a lot of good things, and I made a lot of mistakes. But together, we learned how to hunt birds.
Wow.
And he taught me how to hunt birds.
Wow. So how many dogs now have you trained since that first one?
I don't know. I'd have to really put some thought to it. Let's see.
Ballpark.
8 or 10.
Okay.
Of my own. Of course, I help other guys and been involved with helping train a lot of dogs.
Well, last week when George was on the show and we kind of tried to explain, like I said, as best we could what we were working with, one of the things, several people reached out and they said, well, how do I proceed with this training process without having, let's say, a launcher or some of the other tools? Like you just said, you didn't even have a GPS collar. You didn't have a lot of things, but you still did it. You still made it work. And I think you do what you can with what you have is probably the golden rule, right?
Yeah. GPS collar. Heck, I didn't even have an electric collar. I mean, I had a lead rope I made, I didn't have anything. But yeah, you do what you can with what you have. And I think that's what's wrong with a lot of the videos and the books that I read and stuff, is a lot of them are based on expecting that you have the perfect scenario. You have a Johnny house out back and 30 acres to run a dog on or something. Mm-hmm. And most people, I think probably, at least in my world, the average bird dog owner here in Utah probably lives in the suburbs, and his dog is probably sleeping where my dogs are right now, which is on dog pillows all around the living room. He doesn't have a Johnny house out back. He doesn't have all these, the advantages that a pro trainer has. I always tell people, if you're going to, when people ask me they're going to start a bird dog, the thing that I've been telling them more and more lately is start a flock of homing pigeons, because they're cheap to keep and you can use them over and over and over. And you can use them far away from your house and they'll keep coming back. And birds are expensive. They're hard to get here in Utah. We seem to have a bird shortage that's been going for about 4 years. It's so hard to get game birds to train with. And so without my homing pigeons, I don't know that I could develop a puppy in the modern world that I live in now.
What we could go way down on the topic of just the pigeons and birds itself. But if somebody wanted to find out how to raise their own pigeons, what would be a good resource for them?
Well, I learned from my grandfather, but he's not around anymore, so he can't help you. I don't honestly know, but I'm certain that the internet, Google knows all. Foy's Pigeon Supply has a lot of stuff that for pigeon supplies. I imagine they probably have some books on raising pigeons. I mean, they're like rats; you almost can't kill them. And if you just learn a little bit about how to home them, they're fairly simple to keep.
There are a few places that you can buy products to process and prepare your meat. There are not a lot of places that you can buy those products and learn how to use them from experts. Walton's is that place. They have everything, and I mean everything, for your cooking and wild game processing needs. Plus, they have experts on staff to help you learn how to use those products to get the best results. John Tremblay hosts their Meatgistics podcast, live stream, and chats, which are interactive learning tools for the meat processing community. From sausage making to smoking, recipes to seasonings, and so much more. Walton's products ship the same day you order. They have over 5,000 items in stock, from grinders, mixers, stuffers, slicers, smokers, vacuum sealers, and anything else you can imagine. Order the same seasonings and supplies that professionals use from the best name in the wild game processing industry. Walton's. They have everything but the meat. Aluma Trailers, they've got you covered. Their trailers are built by a hardworking team in Bancroft, Iowa. They have models for nearly any and every hauling need, from ATV and UTV trailers to utility, snowmobile, motorcycle, car trailers, and even fully enclosed trailers like mine. Trust me when I say Aluma Trailers tow gear like a dream, and they are 100% maintenance free. Plus, they come with an industry-best 5-year warranty. Visit alumakln.com to find a trailer that fits your needs. For everything that gets you outdoors, Aluma Trailers will help you get there. Well, right now, so you live in Utah. What part of Utah do you live in?
I'm in northern Utah. I'm just outside of Ogden.
Okay. So is your weather probably pretty good for training right now? Would you say spring and early summer is kind of a prime dog training season for you?
Yeah. We run trials this time of year, and I run in Nastra, and the trials are happening right now, and we're having trials like every other week right now. So it's really hard to keep on top of the training new dogs, and I've got a young dog that's coming up, and then I've got some younger dogs, some older dogs. Let me start over with that one. I've got a dog pacing, so let him outside because he's gonna.
The beauty of this show is that most everybody can relate to your dog's needing. Mine is running around with 3 other dogs at the moment outside of our podcast conference room here that we're recording in. So she's, I don't know what she's doing. I'm hoping that she's not in any kind of trouble. But anyway, keep going.
Anyway, so this is a good time of year to train. I start training right when we even train a little bit during hunting season if we're having some problems. George, in your last podcast, he talked a little bit about identifying what the dog's doing and stuff. And I like to think of it as critical analysis. I'm always picking apart what my dog's strengths and weaknesses are and being very honest about who my dog is. And throughout hunting season, and I might even take a few notes so that I don't forget, because I'm kind of a forgetful person. And then in the springtime, I try to correct all those things. And that usually starts as soon as snow's off the ground. These days, we don't seem to have winter in Utah anymore, so that starts in February. I train through May or so on pen-raised birds and stuff. I don't mess with the wild birds in the spring. I let them do their thing. And then I'll start to pick it up about mid-August, and I'll start to run on some pen-raised birds and even a few wild grouse and things, and getting dogs in shape for hunting season. So I do take a couple months off to try to fish a little bit and write books.
And we're going to get to that too. One pretty common question I get asked over and over is, when do you introduce a dog to birds? And obviously you've got pigeons, but you did mention wild birds as well. What's your rule of thumb?
So I get a puppy home and get them settled in the house. And as soon as they're up and looking like they feel pretty comfortable here, we're going to go outside, and I'm going to pull a pigeon out of the pigeon coop, and I'm just going to show the bird a pigeon, and I'm going to let him smell it and mouth it. And I might even play tug with the tail a little bit or a wing a little bit. And then I'm going to toss it up in the air and let it fly away. And if he looks like he enjoys that, then I'm going to keep going at it and let some more birds fly. And I go through a process of just tossing birds for him until he's super excited about watching birds fly. And that's how I start. So I start right away.
There's not an age, is what you're saying. There's not
I want the dog to grow up with birds. Mm-hmm. So I'm not. I don't know. I don't think there's a list of markers and age points where you can, do those types of things. Now, when I actually go put a bird in the field for a dog, that's a little bit different. So if that's what you're talking about, bird introduction,
Sure. Yeah. No. I think keep going on
that's
that.
a little bit different. So I'm going to wait until I start to see probably some point out of the dog. But realize what I'm using those toss birds for and stuff is at some point I want to introduce that pup to the gun so that I can take him on tag along hunts with me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time during hunting season to walk off with a puppy by himself and just let birds fly. I don't really want to do that. I like running with my older dogs quite a little bit, and I like to be able to pull the trigger without making a gun shy dog. So
right.
I like to introduce that dog to the gun whenever I can, and I go through a long process, and we could talk about that for days. I go through a whole bunch of little steps to make sure that I don't have a gun shy dog.
Well, that is its own episode. But if you could sum that up,
sure.
Is it possible to do that? Can you sum up your process and when you would feel comfortable with the dog being okay with it?
Sure. Evaluate your puppy first. You know pretty quick what kind of puppy you got. Do you have a puppy that noises bother? Or do you got a puppy that ignores noises altogether? Or do you have a puppy somewhere in the middle? The more that puppy's bothered by noises, the more steps I take to really be cautious. And I just go slow. I do it in the house, I mean, around the house, you can sit around and clap your hands and, don't pay no attention to it. And the puppy doesn't care. And, I mean, all kinds of things like that, just to desensitize them to that shock. I think, a lot of the pro trainers, they do some different things, but I go through the same steps the pro trainers do later where, I get the dog chasing a pigeon. I might not, if it doesn't point it doesn't matter. I might put a pigeon in a launcher and the dog's chasing a pigeon and have someone shoot a blank gun off in distance. I'm going to go through that step too. Mm-hmm. I just do a lot of steps with percussion noises in the house. I like the puppy. If I got a puppy that's very, he's an active eater, he goes right to his food and eats right away, I might have my wife stand in the other room and clap and watch him while he eats, see if he's, disturbed by that. Or, I used a cap gun in the past, but I don't really think there's a difference between clapping and a cap gun. I don't know. I mean, there's people that tell me that's useless and there's no need to do that, but I don't know. It's my way. I'm going to do it. It works for me.
So what's useless, the clapping or a cap gun?
They say that you don't need to do that, the food thing in the house or whatever, yeah. I mean, but it's, I think the more you do, the better you are. So I like to take those baby steps. And as I'm watching that dog, my wife's clapping. If that dog's paying attention to her, I'm going to have her tone it down or even stop if the dog's concerned. I mean, what's your puppy's reaction to the disturbance? Most puppies that I've had will just keep eating. Eventually you move it closer over a course of a few days. And once you can clap above the dog while he's eating or whatever, then I might take him outside and clap outside and see if if he's, again, evaluating the puppy. I take it slower with some than others. I might start throwing birds and clapping a little bit or something, if the dog's really into it. But eventually you go in the field and you can put birds in launchers. Because I do a lot of bird tossing, especially the last few dogs. I just get them chasing the bird. I mean, when you throw a bird down in front of them and it flaps and starts to fly and they're chasing it, they're thinking about that. And just have somebody fire a 209 cap gun or a blank gun or something in the background, move it closer. I mean, if you've got a problem right away.
Yeah.
If you've gone through these steps and you've paid attention to the puppy, by the time you get there, you know who you're dealing with.
Not to keep going down this, but if you have a dog, or maybe you've seen it, or maybe you haven't, but if you have a dog that's gun shy, can you ever actually break them of that?
I think you can. I haven't ever had a problem. I haven't ever created a problem. I think gun shyness is noise sensitivity is a trait that some dogs have, I think. But gun shyness is a man-made problem. So if we don't ever create the problem, we don't ever have to fix it. However, I believe that you could desensitize a dog to that sound after he's become disturbed. It would just take a heck of a lot of work, just like a lot of things. If you let your pointing dog run for 3 years and chase and catch pen raised pheasants at the club, and then you decide you want a broke pointing dog to hunt wild birds with, it's going to be pretty tough, right? Same thing with gun shyness. If you don't create the problem, you won't have the problem. You there?
I think
Is there jets flying over?
There is. I live by the Air Force
That's
Base.
what I thought. That's what I thought.
we're
Yeah.
both making motions like, I think there's an airplane flying over.
As soon as I heard 2 in a row, I was like, "Oh, that's a formation." Yeah.
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 Gotcha.
So anyway, that's the sound of freedom you hear.
There you go. So you mentioned, pen raised birds versus wild birds. I think
Yes, sir.
there's, you also talked about the trials, and I'm interested in trials because I know some people that run dogs in trials, they don't hunt that dog. Some people hunt and do trials. Some people just hunt. What's your take on, now that you've done a lot of trialing, having a dog that does both?
So the kind of trials that I do are NASTRA trials. And the dog doesn't have to be broke to wing shot and fall like they would have to be in like American Field or AKC or something like that. The dog just has to be broke to flush. So for that reason, a wild bird dog I think does pretty well in this. Well, they do pretty well in NASTRA. If you were trying to keep a dog broke, so I don't know too many guys, there are some, but I don't know too many guys that can hunt a dog that's broke to wing shot and fall, expect that same dog to retrieve, and then keep him broke through a hunting season and into trial. This is pretty tough. So that, I think that would be a little bit harder, especially if he was your only hunting dog. But for NASTRA, I think it works really well. And I think those wild bird, the things that the dogs learn on wild birds translate. The one thing that you have to take them a little bit further in training, because your dog has got to be able to stand there while a wild quail stands up and runs in front of them or walks in front of them. If your dog's going to break point when that bird stands up and starts walking, you're going to have some problems in NASTRA.
Were you intimidated the first time you signed up?
I hear of a lot of people that are intimidated. I don't know that I was intimidated so much as I was trying to figure out if I wanted to play the game. And I had a young dog named Tick, and I went out to a trial, and I signed up, and I did my research, and I'm not the kind of guy who's just going to show up and try to figure it out on the fly. I read the rule book, I did I talked to some people. There's a lady up in Moscow who is a NASTRA person, and she was nice enough to talk me through some things. So I had a pretty good idea of what I was dealing with. At least I thought. And I'll tell you about my first runs. I wasn't really intimidated. In fact, I was feeling pretty good about it. I drew. So the way NASTRA works is there's 32 dogs in a trial. There can't be any more. And there has to be at least 24 dogs for it to be a 3-dog trial, or a 3-point trial, which is like a full trial, right? And I'll explain that in a minute. So there was 32 dogs in this trial, and then they take and they draw out of a hat, or it's called on my computer now, I guess. Let's just start over there. I kind of fumbled over myself there, Brandon. So the way NASTRA trials work is you have 32 dogs in a trial. You can have as few as 24 to have a full trial, and I'll talk to you about what a full trial means in a minute. But they draw for braces, so it's 2 dogs and 2 handlers in each brace, and there'll be 16 braces, and there's like in between braces, you sit in a blind and you're hidden from the field while they go and they set 5 pen raised quail out there, right? Usually it's quail. It can be done on chunkers, and occasionally it is, but for the most part, it's bobwhite quail. Well, I drew in my very first brace, I drew a dog named Boomer. Now, Boomer's a Weimaraner. Now, I admit to having, back in my younger days, before I grew older and wiser, having some breed bias. And I thought, a Weimaraner. I was licking my chops, I'm not going to lie. I thought, my buddy Tig, we're going to blow this Weimaraner off the we let go of the dogs, and Tick took off on a gear that I'd never seen him use before, and he went clear out the end of the field, and that Weimaraner stuck a bird there and stuck a bird over there, and I mean, this Weimaraner just cleaned the field with us. And I walked out of the field going, well, I guess Weimaraners aren't so bad after all. Anyway, but it took a while. It turns out that particular Weimaraner is the only Weimaraner, at least I think it's the only Weimaraner to this day that has championed in NASTRA. It's certainly the only Weimaraner out here that has. Great dog. I learned to know that dog really well, and he's owned by Matt Blokovich, great dog, great guy. Anyway, but I learned the thing that I didn't like about it at first was I was treating it like hunting, and you got to realize that it's not hunting. NASTRA is a dog game. It's a game you play with your dog, and you're trying to score, and you got to learn how to score. And so once I took it as a game, and I started taking it more, I was a soccer coach for about 20 years, and I started taking it more like it was more like soccer. So I started thinking about how to score. What did I leave out on the field? What do I need to train my dog to do to improve his score? And anyway, once I started thinking like that, we improved a little bit. And it took a year. We ran and every trial we could for a year, and we didn't place, and it was a little bit discouraging. But then he got a third place placement, like the very last trial of, I think it was the second year we trialed. And so it had been, I was starting to wonder, does this dog even have it, for the whole trial thing? Anyway, we qualified for the regional that year, and the regional, and here goes the sound of freedom again. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. We'll work through it.
Okay. And the regional elimination trial is sort of the pinnacle of the NASTRA trial season, right?
Yep.
And I'll talk to you more about that later. But anyway, so we went and ran on the regional and didn't do anything. So the next year, the very first trial, Tick goes out and wins.
You're strutting a little bit now, feeling it?
Well, a little bit. I was just more like at this point, I was just more in awe. I was like, holy cow, he's starting to get it. And then we just went on this crazy run and won a whole bunch of trials. And the next regional, he ended up winning.
Besides a bird dog, a shotgun, and a good pair of boots, the onX Hunt app is one of the most valuable hunting tools that I take into the field every day. I talk about the onX Hunt app every week. That's simply because I use it on every hunt. Their app tells me everything that I need to know about the lands that I want to hunt and the lands that we can all legally hunt on. onX app shows your location on planet Earth and clearly lays out the land boundaries. It also tells you information about the type of property you're on, like state-owned land, federal lands, and walk-in access properties. It's ideal for scouting before the hunt and during a hunt to help put together patterns. The app also has useful features that show you the kind of crops that are in fields, which obviously is a big deal for us upland bird hunters. If you hunt grouse in the Northwoods, there's a timber cut layer to help you find ideal forest habitat. If you're planning to hunt in North Dakota, then there's also a very important layer that lets you know if a property has been posted electronically. These are just a few of the many tools onX Maps give you, and these maps can even be used in areas without cell coverage. From the palm of your hand, onX Maps always help you know where you stand. Nutrisource Pet Foods just launched a new product that can give our active hunting dogs a big boost when they need it most. It's called Kombucha. Nutrisource Kombucha, inspired of course by kombucha, is a savory, meaty bone broth topper that's packed with activated postbiotics from a fermentation product that thrives in the gut to promote a healthy gut ecosystem for digestion support. That's a mouthful. But what it means for us bird dog owners is that we now have a healthy topper to pour over our dog's food if they're ever stressed or won't eat while on a long hunting trip. Kombucha is offered in 3 flavors: turkey, beef, and chicken, and comes in a 12-ounce pouch. Nutrisource high-performance dog foods provide exceptional healthy nutrition for active dogs of every breed, just like my dog Daisy. Now they have a topper that gives our 4-legged hunters another edge when they need it the most. Check out their full lineup of dog foods at NutrisourcePetFoods.com. Do you think, Bret, that it was you working with him or that dog just maturing to the point of understanding his role?
Well, I think it's all inclusive. I mean, you as a handler trainer, you try to set your dog up for success, but you also sometimes have to set them up to fail in order to gain the success, if that makes sense. I'm around a lot of guys that are trying to train for trials, and in training, they never let the dog fail. They set him up to succeed every time. And so when the adversity happens in a trial, the dog fails because he's never seen it before. So I think that was the big transition, is I started setting him up to fail in practice, and then by doing that and correcting him, holding him accountable, he learned how to succeed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. I think that speaks to wild bird hunting and the importance of taking a dog to a place that they have a lot of contacts with wild birds, because they need to work through it. And it takes time to get to that point. And I think it's all part of the hunting journey. In your trialing, is there a breed that consistently wins?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I've seen, I guess it's probably the big four that win consistently in Astra: pointers, setters, English setters, Brittany's, and German short-haired pointers. And recently out here, the draughts have become quite a force. They didn't let them in for a little while because they didn't. NASTRA didn't accept the German registry as an acknowledged pointing breed by NASTRA or whatever. So they couldn't run. And but now that they've been allowed to run, they're actually doing quite well in it. Especially certain trials, they seem to have a knack for certain terrains that the other dogs. They seem to do better at than the other dogs. I'm sorry. So.
Well, I thought we would be talking a lot more about your book by now, and I'm not sure how far into this conversation we are, but I think let's take time now to transition over. So you recently wrote a book called, and here comes freedom again. That's not the title. That's not the title of the book. We'll let it pass.
No, it's not.
Yeah, the title of your book is A Millionaire's Dream. Why did you name it that? And what is your book about?
Well, I think if you read the book, you'll know exactly why it's titled that. But it's a book about an impoverished young man in 1950s Idaho, rural Idaho, and he loses about everything he's got. Let's start over with this. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I wonder if I can get in a room where the airplanes are less severe. Maybe if I go more towards the center of the house, I would have less trouble. Maybe it's better in here. We'll try it from here. Okay. So, it's about an impoverished teen in 1950s rural southeast Idaho. And he lives on a farm with his mother. And his mother passes away at the beginning of the book, and he really has to learn how to make it on his own. And he's socially awkward and sort of set back in life because his mother's been fighting this disease for a long time. And so much of his life has been surviving and just helping her fight this disease. And all of a sudden she's gone, and he's got to make something of a life for himself. He doesn't really have any friends. He's got sort of some family, but and he's got the townspeople, but, anyway, so he really struggles, and eventually he meets up with an English setter puppy that's kind of a special dog, and through this setter puppy, he meets a very wealthy man from the city who is into dog trialing, and they sort of become like a mentor-mentee relationship. And this man gives him a way to make a living. I wouldn't say he gives him a way to make a living. He offers him a way to earn a living. How's that? And they go on this journey to try to win this big field trial. And on the way, the main character, James Crockett, he learns a lot about love and girls, and makes a lot of mistakes along the way. And I think it's a story a lot of people relate to. So, and I hope I wrote it in such a way that people do enjoy it.
Now, do you know this character?
No, this is all fictitious. So the character James Crockett came out of out of my mind. I was hunting in Southeast Idaho, where I spent a lot of time, and my stepdad grew up in Southeast Idaho, so I'm really familiar with his hometown and several other little towns in that area. And I was just up there hunting one day, and I came across this old homestead while I was hunting pheasants, and I walked into the homestead, and because the door was open, and I looked around, and it was broken down and dilapidated, and there wasn't a lot to do. But my mind started working, and I thought, I wonder who the last person to live here was. And I wondered if he looked out on these fields the same way I did, or if he saw them different. And I thought, what if he was a bird dog guy? And so it all just came that day hunting. The beginning of that story happened. And then I went on a long research journey to search, what that area would have looked like in the 50s. And I gathered information from several towns and sort of made my own fictitious town that would have been in that area somewhere, and went on from there.
When did you decide to write a book about it?
I had already been considering writing a book, so I think it was probably that day was the day I decided to write a book. I had gotten into writing as an older person. I wasn't into English or even school when I was young. I was kind of the opposite of that. But as I got older, early forms of social media and stuff, I learned that I could write stories a little bit. And people like to read my hunting stories. And I'd get a lot of comments, man, you should write a book. And I think they meant you should write a book about hunting stories. and maybe I should have. But I didn't really want to write a book just about my adventures in the hills. Maybe I will someday, but right now I don't. Truthfully, I don't find it that interesting. It's what I do every day, all the time. But so I thought, maybe I could write fiction that's about people like us who like to do the things that we like to do and live the lifestyle that we live. And maybe it came out of a different time. And that's sort of what I figured out.
Well, how long did it take for you? I have to imagine you had to research, how do you publish a book and figure everything out? Like from start to finish, did you know how long it took to get your book from your first words on paper to published?
I had no idea how long it would take. I'm limited in time. Also, I have many things going on, so I get, parts of days and every now and then a full day to write here and there. It took 3 years to write the book. When I put the final period on it was almost 3 years to the day. Once that was done, I figured it was over, but it wasn't. That's when the journey really began. So then I learned that it's a good idea to have some people read your work. Who'd have thought?
That's never fun, by the way. When somebody reads your work and then they give you the opinion, you say, "Never mind, I'll just take it back. Forget you."
Right, yeah. So I sent it out to people that I trusted, friends, from different parts of the country. My favorite person I sent one to is in inner city LA. I mean, she's from pretty rough LA, because I wanted to send it to someone who wasn't in my world, to see if they could enjoy it. And anyway, the feedback came back, and I made some adjustments to the manuscript and edited it, another time or two. And then I put it up, and I was trying to figure out how to get a publisher to get on board. And I started reading about publishing, and that took some time, and I kind of just gave up. And my wife kept pushing it. You need to have it published. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll just set it aside and write another book and worry about it later, because I didn't want to deal with it. And she said, she kept at me, and finally we kind of attacked it as a team, and we found all these different publishers, and we sent out query letters to all these publishers, and We did get a couple of bites it was kind of frustrating because it took about 3 months. And then I got, of course, I got some of the predatory offers that they wanted to publish my book with my money. And, they were going to charge me a bunch to do it. But I finally got an offer from Touchpoint Press down in Arkansas. And it was a good offer. I accepted it. And then you think it's over, and it's still not over. So then you have to go through the editing process. And it took another month before the book was went into editing, before it came up in the queue in the editor's thing. Gotcha. And she sends me, so you wait a month for them to send this to you, and she sends me the manuscript back all marked up, and she says, make these edits. You've got 3 days to do it in or something. I'm like, wait, I work for a living, man. So, and this went back and forth, but you stay up nights and you get it done. And anyway, this went back and forth. I think we did 4 or 5 times, and we butted heads a little bit, and we made each other laugh, and it was fun working with her. It was all great. Nice. And then you're done editing, and you're done, but you're not. So then you wait, and I didn't hear another thing. I realized that I signed the contract in 2020, and what we were going through in 2020. Let's not talk about it. We all know what we were going through. Yep. And so it was in July of 2020. In October, I was done editing. And then I heard nothing forever. And of course, people are, when's your book going to be out? When's your book going to be? And I don't know. I don't even know what to tell them. And a year later, I finally got, a request for or not a request, but query about cover art. What did I want on the cover? And that was the next thing I heard. So it took them a year to get from that editing process to where they were working on a cover. And of course, the cover art, the press that published me, they are not in the bird dog world at all. They publish all kinds of books, but I don't know that they publish. This is probably the first book about dogs and hunting and trials that they've ever seen. And so they were sending me, images. Of course, I'm a first-time author, so they're trying to save a little bit of money too. And they're sending me images of bench setters on point and all these things. And I'm like, man, I don't know if that's right. And so finally, I just went out and stood my young dog on the hill at sunrise and took a picture of him and kind of shadowed the image and did some filters to it and sent it in. And I said, just use this. And so the dog on the picture is one of our dogs.
That's very cool. If somebody reads the book, what do you hope they take away from it?
Well, I hope first of all, I hope I might have a dog problem here. I just heard a growl, and that's really unusual at my house. Okay.
Everything good there?
Yeah, we have a little food issue.
Okay.
My oldest dog, Tick, thinks that one of the younger dogs' food belongs to him, and the younger dog is protesting.
Oh, sure. This is an on-air seminar starting right now. What are you going to do, Bret? How are you going to handle this?
Because I'm distracted. I just picked up the food. But
nobody gets any food. So, there, take that. Yeah. That's what I do with my kids, too. Same thing.
We'll take care of this later. Anyway, so I don't remember where we were.
That's okay. I asked what you hope somebody would take away from this book if they have the opportunity to read it.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I hope people like you and I just enjoy it. I hope it's entertaining. I hope it's fun. And if they're not into trials, I hope they go to a trial and watch a trial, whether it's NASTR or American Field or AKC or any of the other trial associations that are around. Because if nothing else, it's a great place to see some wonderful dogs and talk to some people who are really passionate about the bird dog side of bird hunting. And there's a lot to bird hunting, a lot more than just dogs. But the bird dog side of it, there are a lot of people out there who are super passionate. You can see a bunch of different breeds run at some of these trials. And I mean, some of my best friends have come from dog trialing. And anyway, I hope that people will be a little bit more interested in the trialing side of it. There is, I think you mentioned it earlier. I think there's a perception that a wild bird dog can't be a trial dog. It's either a hunting dog or a trial dog, and maybe that is true in some aspects, but it's all beautiful. Watching a dog run full speed for an hour in an American field trial is pretty amazing, and then spin and stick birds, and it's pretty amazing. And then you go out to a NASTRA trial and watch two dogs run against each other for a half hour and put birds on the card and pressure each other, and they're competitive, and it brings out a different gear in them.
Well,
you'll never see. It's okay. You'll never see that gear hunting.
Yeah. We started this conversation out by you explaining how you introduce kids to dogs and birds and hunting and the world of conservation. And I'm wondering, as I'm listening to the story, so I have four kids, but three of them that are fascinated with reading, and we read every night. And I've got several hunting books that they've been given for Christmas. They're stories. Mm-hmm. They're just like a story that you've written, it sounds like. And I'm wondering, is this book, would it interest young kids as well? Because I've been interested in the stories that I've been reading, these novels that I've been reading to my boys and my girl. But we're done with those now, and I don't feel like there's a lot out there in this, the wildlife novel book for us to choose from. Would this be a good one for kids?
And that's part of my motivation. And it is written family friendly. It's pretty tame. I mean, there's a heated scene in a girl with a girl in a car, but it's steamy windows and things. But it's not. It's but there's not anything real bad in this book. I hope it's entertaining for kids. I have some of my friends, their kids have read it, and the kids liked it. The early parts of it are a little bit dark. Maybe to get into for the kids, but kids that like reading, I think will like it. I hope.
Excellent. Well, what's coming up next? I know you've got more in the works.
Yeah, I'm writing another one. The next one's a little bit more, a little bit different. I'm kind of taking on something that's a little bit passionate to me in my life. I've watched my world disappear to what I call the cancer of the American West. And I don't know what it's like where you live. But here, the expanding urbanization has really just taken all the farms, and it's there's just not much left. And so, I figured I'd write a book about how there's some characters that are going to live out some acts, and as we're developing all this land, there's just things that we're destroying that are also valuable. And in this book, there's something that's destroyed that we only find out it existed at the end after it's too late. And that's the basics of it.
Okay. Got a title for that one yet?
No. I'm only a little ways in. Unfortunately, I don't have very much time to write right now. I got so much going on.
Well, that's a good thing. Right? That's a good thing. Yeah. I appreciate you taking some of your time today to join us. Last question for you. It's training season. You've trained a lot of dogs. You've learned the hard way. What's one piece of advice you could give somebody that wants to train their own dog that you've learned along the way that could make a big difference for them?
One piece of advice. Well, that's hard. But I guess the biggest thing is lay off the e-collar. Maybe, get the dog his head a little bit. Let him show you some things. But that's one thing, is I would not shock the dog so dang much, but I gotta get something better than that.
No, that's okay. We're going to leave it at that, Bret. I really appreciate you taking the time today. I really value all the effort that you've put into teaching other kids and just putting yourself out there into places that a lot of people aren't doing. And I guarantee you're making a difference, and I commend you for doing that. Thanks, Bret. If somebody wanted to find your book, where can they find it?
Yeah, it's on Amazon, and it's also on BretWonnacott.com.
Okay, and it's titled "A Millionaire's Dream." There it is.
Wait, I got to ramp up to it. We're learning on air.
We're learning. This is an on-air production meeting. This is how we're doing it.
All right.
All right. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Look at how I just kind of like segue into it.
I'm picking right up on it. Yeah.
We appreciate you taking the time to join us this week. And next week, I'm not exactly sure what the topic is going to be yet. I've got a lot of great ideas and a lot of great guests lined up. But if you have a guest or a topic that you want us to cover, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, please reach out to us. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, but more importantly, you can find The Flush at theflush.tv or on Instagram or Facebook. Send us a message. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you like and what you want to hear more about. And we will break it down. And Brandon, you ran out of music. Just like softly play it again.
We'll also work on the timing for next episode as well.
We are like our dogs. We're always learning, and we're always trying to figure out what in the world we're doing. But we appreciate you taking the time to join us. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Flush Podcast. I'm Travis Rank, reminding you to introduce someone new to the great outdoors.
We'll just let it roll all the way out. We did it.
We did it. We made it.